up, guys? Matt here, your host of Positive Mischief, bringing you a quick little announcement. Second guest into this, we're already making a little bit of a tweak. We had such a good time and a long conversation that we're breaking it into two pieces. And here comes part one of episode number 2 right now. Enjoy. Welcome back to Positive Mischief. I am Matt Guastafaro. I'm your host. I'm also the Chief Mischief Maker at Hugo Creative. And today on our show, we have Bonnie Bernstein. Bonnie's, if you guys don't know her, you probably know her from a lot of football, sideline action. She was a big part of CBS and their team. So that's probably where you recognize her. But she's doing some cool stuff now these days. Welcome, Bonnie. How are you?
Hi, Matt. Good to see you again. It's the first time we're actually talking where we're not working on a project together. So I'm not really even sure what to expect, but I'm completely zen and open-minded about it. So
there you go. That's what we're looking for. Yep. So this show is Positive Mischief, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But I think a fun way to introduce this is to tell us your job as if you were explaining it to a 6-year-old.
I can't even explain it to adults. My customary answer is I've become a storytelling Swiss Army knife. For a 6-year-old, I'm going to assume a Swiss Army knife analogy is not going to translate. First and foremost, I tell stories, and I work with other people to tell stories to make sure that the video looks pretty, that the sound is clear, and that we're telling a story that you understand. The other thing I do is help people tell their stories and help them build their brands so they can be super successful, because every business that's successful has a great story behind it, but sometimes they just need a little help figuring out how to tell that story in a way that makes the listener say, wow, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. So how has this new venture that you've been on for a few years now, how is what you did at CBS and through sports, how is that translated into where you are now?
In large part because I've been very intentional about what I did when I was at CBS and ESPN. And what I mean by that is if you want, we as talent can kind of live in a bubble. We can show up, we can do the broadcast, we can talk about what we're seeing, we're hearing, we can tell our stories, and then we're done. Translation, you're minimally involved.
Yeah.
Knowing that I always had this entrepreneurial spirit and this creativity, and I wanted to try to find a way to bring it to life in a way that was more not just telling the story, but from concept to execution. I've always been very aware of what's going on behind me. And I think one of the reasons why I always wanted to be a journalist in the first place is just a very natural curiosity. So rather than just showing up and doing sideline reports, I would be looking at what my camera guy is shooting, the angles he's shooting it from. When I would go back and look at the games, how is the director cutting the game? When it came to doing stand-ups or shooting interviews, I would ask a ton about the lighting. What sorts of lighting are they using? Why are they setting it this way? Right. I understand the concept of a fill light for your eyes, so it doesn't look like you have back. And talking to the audio tech. So while I don't now, as somebody who is the founder and CEO of a production company, I don't do all of those jobs, it's empowered me to have the types of conversations I need to have as the creator of a show, as the executive producer of a show, and as the showrunner of a show. Yep. It's enabled me to have the types of critical conversations for us to all work collaboratively together to deliver something awesome. And that's something that I've really enjoyed about, being able to work with you on logos and animation and graphics and all that sort of stuff. Because even with us, that's been a process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So what I hear you saying is take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you, because there's ways to learn from just what you're signed on to do.
Yeah. And it's so much more than you. It's so much more than the job you're being paid to do. They always talk about the best players in any given sport have an awareness about what every guy, every girl at every other position's doing. It's about being able to see the field.
Yep.
So that's kind of a different way of reiterating what you're saying, like take advantage of every opportunity and be really passionate and proactive about figuring out what all of those opportunities look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah. So as we talked about this, the name of the show is Positive Mischief. For me and what we do at Hugo, that is essentially play. It is how do we take our personalities and we infuse it into our jobs? So with that as, an overall theme, does mischief play a role? And we'll say positive mischief because we don't want to go negative. But does that play a role in what you do and how you think?
Mischief is an interesting word. To be honest, I don't know if you asked me to do a 30-second elevator pitch on, why you should hire my production company to create something for you. I'm not sure that I'd say, oh, we're mischievous. But there is something fun and intriguing about the word mischief that I think plays into the approach we take to our jobs. We can all take our jobs really seriously. And I was there, when you're hired at ESPN, when you're 24 years old and you're more concerned about building your credibility, you are actually, I won't speak for anybody else. I was super serious, like talking for my 15 seconds on the sideline about somebody's sprained ankle was like a life or death situation. And when I became more comfortable with myself and more secure with myself, I then had the realization that the best way to connect with people is to be authentically you. And authentic and organic are the two words that we probably have used more since, 2020 hit than any other words. And so where does mischief play a role in there? When you say the word mischief, there's a fun connotation and connection to it. And if you're having fun, that rubs off on everybody else around you, not just the team you work with at Hugo, but your clients too. Yeah. What's important about that is it makes the collaboration process pleasant and positive.
Right.
So to me, mischief, when you say it, is a mindset that if you're incorporating that the right way into your job, your profession, and your daily approach, yields success.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really important is I like the word authentic, and I agree with you. It's been overused in the last 2 years. But if people know that you're in it for them and not just in it for yourself, they're way more likely to want to be part of that. And I think there's an authenticity. You can't just act that. You have to really give a damn. And if you're not, then they're going to see through that. So that's the number one thing is show people that you're interested in who they are, not just what they're trying to bring you. And I think that kind of works to what you're saying about, that 15 seconds on the sideline, rather than just talking about what was happening, really getting invested in the bigger, broader story. There's an authenticity to that that's hard to overlook.
Yeah. And creatives, we're kind of different animals.
Yeah.
We are, some of us, I guess, are more linear analytic than others. But creativity is a very individual process. And so when you have to collaborate with other creatives, you it's this little dance, but ultimately you as Hugo Creative and your team, you're setting the tone. That process is much easier. We were talking about this before we started taping the podcast. Sometimes in my head, I know what I'm trying to relay to you. When we were working on the Good Game esports show, and I had this vision of what the logo looked like, but articulating that is hard and it can be frustrating. But if you as the tone setter are determining ahead of time, this is not going to be a frustrating process. We're going to get it right and we're going to have fun.
Yeah. Then
on the other side, the client's it's okay. I don't have to be perfect the first time the way I'm articulating it. We're going to figure it out together, know?
Yeah. And so what does that look like for you though, as somebody who is running shows, who is working with talent, working with a crew? How do you set the tone in a way that they all jump on board with what you're trying to do?
Inclusivity is a huge part of that. And when I have discussions with people, whether it's speaking engagements or doing podcasts or just general discussions about what leadership looks like, for me, inclusivity is a big part of that. Because it's very easy for any C-level person, any entrepreneur who's running his or her own shop in whatever capacity that may be, to have a dictatorial approach, because inevitably somebody has to be the ultimate decision maker when there are a bevy of opinions or thoughts about how something needs to be done, how to get something across the finish line, whatever it is. But if at the very onset and the foundation, you let people know that their thoughts and their opinions are welcome, you make them feel a part of the process, whether that is a lower level associate producer or a grip or a runner, whatever. The best opinions are those that are formed cumulatively. And at the end of the day, you'll hear from any employee for any type of company that they want to be part of a positive work culture. They want to feel like their voice matters. So if you can take the lead in establishing that and make them feel like they are more than a number, that they have value beyond the actual job description for which they're getting paid, that's powerful.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
All right, that's the end of part 1 with Bonnie Bernstein. We have part 2 coming up soon. And don't worry, our resident jester does make an appearance. We got some questions from him that we had a good time with Bonnie on. So come on back. We'll have that for you soon. Until then, see ya.